Okay, so we watched the YouTube video. We've just done the demo of Blackboard Collaborate. We just keep plugging along. Homework 8 is due on Monday, and we're going to talk about some calculations that support that assignment that are related to the SCS unit hydrograph method. And we've talked about unit hydrographs before. Just if you have actual physical measurements from a watershed of rainfall excess and what's the stream response, but this SCS unit hydrograph method is meant to be used in places where you don't actually have physical data for that watershed. So it's a way of extrapolating into locations where you maybe have GIS data but not previous measurements. So in some ways it's akin to the Snyder method, where the Snyder method you're using physical data to predict a hydrograph. So this is similar to that, but it's more sophisticated because it allows us to have a curvilinear runoff shape. And so you can see that what we have is a general curve where we're defining some time to peak. And so across the horizontal axis, these numbers 1, 2, 3, this is all scaled to the time to peak. So 1 t sub p is, we'll calculate the time to peak, we'll calculate the lag time, which is defined as the amount of time from the middle of the rainfall excess to when we observe the peak. And what this allows us to do is be more realistic in predicting what the volume would be coming out of a watershed and having more control over how high that peak is according to the actual basin characteristics. So here's the formula that we use to calculate lag time, and you've used different formulas in the past to estimate the travel time when water is flowing over the surface of a watershed before there's any shallow concentrated flow. You remember that for parking lot you use the Kirby method, the FAA method, the Kirpich, kinematic wave. Those were all approaches to estimate how quickly water is able to travel when it's just surface flow, flowing as a sheet. This, by contrast, is meant to be applied to a watershed, and it can be much larger and longer flow paths than the lengths that you'd use for just strictly surface flow. So this formula is going to give you the lag time in hour, and the lag time, remember, that this measures is from the middle of some rainfall excess period until we see the peak. So that's what we define as the lag time. So L is going to be the hydraulic length, and that's the distance within the watershed from the furthest point away from the outlet to the outlet itself. And so when we use WMS, that'll be an automated calculation where it will send a raindrop at every location in the watershed, and it will try and find the longest flow path for that watershed. So the furthest away isn't always the furthest distance. It's potentially just related to what an indirect route the water molecule may be taking from when it lands in the watershed to where it comes to the outlet. So L is a distance, S is the slope, and we use the slope in terms of percent. And so a typical slope around here maybe would be 40% because we have really steep watersheds, and so you'd put in 40 plus 1 to that 0.7 power. And then, S is the retention that we calculate from the curve number, and slope is Y. I apologize for switching those. The time to peak and the time of concentration are related to each other. The time of concentration can be related from the lag time that you calculate, and the curve that I'm going to show you in a minute, we have basically in the Excel file that's available on Blackboard right now. It tells you what is the Q to QP, so it's the ratio of the flow rate at a certain time to the peak flow rate that you're going to see. And then it's also a ratio of what time it is to the time to peak time. And so this curve is scaled both in time and also in height. So here on the vertical axis, you'll notice that it's going to say the flow rate at any particular time to the maximum flow rate. And so it's also scaled to 1.0 on the vertical axis in the same way that it's scaled to 1.0 on the horizontal axis. And so for time, we're referencing the time to peak, and for flow rate, all of these flow rates at any other time besides the peak time is just going to be established by the table of values that we'll look at in just a moment. So the question is then, how do you calculate the peak discharge that you're going to see? The time to peak is calculated by this, starting with the lag time, and the relationship between lag time and time of concentration is known. Now the precipitation excess we can estimate from the NRCS method, where if there's a curve number for a certain watershed, you can calculate the storage, and with the storage you can calculate the initial abstraction, and once you know storage, initial abstraction, and precipitation, you calculate precipitation excess. So the precipitation excess that you calculate from the NRCS method, that's what is called Q in this formula, and Q is just a runoff depth, and if you know the runoff depth, you can use this empirical equation to calculate the amount of flow rate that you're going to see depending on a peaking factor that varies based on the land use of a watershed. And so a typical peaking factor of 484 would maybe be modified higher if you have urban areas or particularly steep slopes. And so this is a way of calibrating the peak discharge equation to further take into effect not only just the curve number, but also the degree of urbanization that is inside of a watershed. So here's an example that we're going to go through and get some practice using the SCS method. First, we'll start with the watershed data here. We know the watershed area is 3 miles, and by the way, if we go back here into the units for the peak discharge equation, you'll notice that that watershed area for this formula, where we're using 484 as the peaking factor, we have to put in the watershed area in square miles in that equation. And so square miles, Q is going to be a depth. It's going to be the runoff depth, which is the same thing as the rainfall excess depth. So we have the area of the watershed is 3 miles, a curve number is specified as 86, and we want to find the unit hydrograph peak discharge. So for a unit of rainfall excess, what would be the flow rate that comes out of this watershed if we have a 3% slope and the length is 1.2 miles. Now remember, the length needs to be, if we go back to the units here, the length needs to be in feet. So since we're given the length in miles, you'll have to convert the length in this formula to feet, because there's 5280 feet in a mile, so 1.2 times that will give you L. And then here's the equation that you use to calculate the maximum potential storage in the watershed based on the curve number. All right, so let me give you a moment to try and calculate the time of concentration, the time to peak, and the peak discharge amount, and then we'll go to that Excel table that's on Blackboard and create an actual hydrograph based on this data. Let me interject for just one moment. So where it says here unit hydrograph, what that means is we're going to assume that Q, the rainfall excess, or in other words the runoff depth, is 1 inch. So in this case, assume that Q is 1 inch. In reality, maybe we'd be asking, what does the hydrograph look like for some other amount of rainfall excess? And so then you could calculate that with our P sub E formula that we saw, the NRCS method. But for this one, where it says the unit hydrograph, assume that Q, the runoff depth, is 1 inch of rainfall excess.
Where did you get the T sub
T sub L.
1.36.
0.56.
Oh, okay. I put my slope in as a decimal and not a
Yeah.
number.
Okay, so here's the lag time. Now, 0.656 hours means, if we go back to the figure, that we're assuming the amount of lag time between the middle of this storm duration and the peak itself. And the thing that's a little bit murky is you'll notice that the storm duration isn't specified. And so one of the weaknesses of the SCS method is that if you have a 1-hour storm or a 2-hour storm, the method that we're learning isn't sensitive to the duration of the storm. It's just kind of a fixed response. But the lag time of 0.656 hours, then we would calculate the time of concentration of 1.093 hours, and then from that calculate the time to peak. 2/3 of the time of concentration is the time to peak, and so that is the time to peak from the beginning, when the rainfall just starts at time 0, to when we're going to see the maximum flow rate. Okay, so once we calculate the times, we calculate the runoff. So what this means is that for every inch of rainfall excess that comes out of the watershed, the peak flow rate is going to be 1992 CFS. So for a watershed that's, what was it, 3 square miles? 3 square miles, and this is relatively high curve number, so it's either got a lot of development or a lot of poor soil. For an inch of rainfall excess. So we're not saying an inch of rainfall, we're saying an inch of rainfall excess is going to cause 1992 CFS per inch. Okay, so now what we do is we switch over to this template file here. And so the given in this file, it's maybe a little too far, is the time to peak and the Q to the Q peak. And so we want to establish, first of all, the T sub P, and this is going to be in hours, and then the Q sub P in hours, and not in hours, in CFS per inch of rainfall excess. Okay. So the time to peak is 0.729 hours, 0.729 hours, and then CFS per inch, 1992 CFS per inch. So we're going to have time in hours, and then runoff in CFS. That's ultimately what a hydrograph is runoff versus time. Okay, so the time is going to be this ratio multiplied by the time to peak. So if you look at the formula here, T divided by T sub P. So if we multiply this ratio by the time to peak, and be sure and anchor the reference to the time to peak, then this is going to be essentially telling us, you know, notice here at 1, that's 0.729 hours since the storm started. So this is taking a relative time scale to an absolute time scale. And then, as you'd expect, we're going to do the similar thing with the discharge. To find the runoff, it is the discharge ratio multiplied by the quantified amount of runoff. And then we drag that down through the entire storm. And so the point of everything's tied to this time to peak, and so at 0.729 hours we see 1992 CFS per inch. And so we could prepare a figure like a runoff hydrograph if we wanted to see the runoff hydrograph and the input data for that would be along the horizontal. We're going to put time, and along the vertical we'll put runoff. And then it's always good to add like axis labels. Certainly more important than the chart title. Alright, so then this would be time, and it would be the time since the rain starts. 0 means when the storm begins, and then this would be the runoff and CFS. So this is the unit hydrograph for this particular watershed. If you have an inch of rainfall excess, then the hydrograph is going to look like that. And so if you have 2 inches of rainfall excess, then the hydrograph would just simply be double. And the way that this is practically used, the way that we're going to use it, is similar to what we did with where we had multiple hydrographs that were delayed. Do you remember when we did the delaying the unit hydrograph, you know, one row down for each hour of delay, and then we added them all up, and so it's kind of like we were adding multiple columns together. So we won't just have a single curve like this for a watershed, but we'll say during the first hour of the storm there was a certain amount of rainfall excess, and so this is the hydrograph that comes from that first hour of the storm. And then in the second hour of the storm we have a different amount of precipitation, and so we'll kind of make an additive and cumulative runoff hydrograph using this approach. So just to summarize what it is, the SCS unit hydrograph method is used when you have GIS data for a watershed, where maybe you know the slope of the watershed and you know enough about its soil and land use that you can estimate a curve number, but you don't actually know what the watershed, what its actual unit hydrograph looks like, and so you synthesize a unit hydrograph using a typical shape. And that typical shape, what they've decided is that it can be influenced by additional factors over and above the effect of the curve number on estimating the runoff excess amount. And then the way that we estimate the applicable times has to do with the slope, the potential for storage, and then the distance that water has to travel for all of the areas in the watershed to finally be contributing to flow. And so this L distance is the furthest length that a particle has to travel to get from the furthest reach of the outlet to the outlet of the watershed, the location of interest where you're trying to figure out what the flow rate is at that location. Alright, so I think that's the last thing that you'll need to have to be able to solve that homework assignment. We're going to continue talking about these ideas in class on Friday, assuming that we're here on Friday. I think we will be. Any questions about the example that we went through today? All right. That's it for today. I will see you